If you've been following the news, Russia's shenanigans mean that the already rising energy and fuel prices are going to be further compounded by the threat of war in Europe. God forbid, hope it doesn't come to that. But anyway, with petrol prices in the UK already over £1.50 a litre and potentially set to rise further, what can you do to use less fuel, to save a bit of fuel and hence reduce your expenses? Well, here are some tips that might help you, and some of these tips might also apply to electric cars. You know, you EV drivers don't need to be sitting there too smug, as of course energy pricing that's rising all over is going to be hitting you as well if it hasn't already. Number one, use the stop-start. Now I know I always switch these things off as well, the stop-start things, but an idling engine uses fuel. So if you're sitting around with it running but not going anywhere, then you're using up fuel. So even if you don't have a stop-start, maybe get into the practice of switching it off at traffic lights. And you know what? Do things like use Google Maps or Waze to see where the traffic is, where you're going, so you can try and avoid that, or just use them. I tend to just keep them on so that they normally reroute you around traffic anyway. Also, don't bother warming up the cars, like when you first start it and you think, oh, I need to warm this up. Modern cars, you don't need to do that. You can just switch them on and go and waste less fuel. Number two, don't rev unnecessarily. Yeah, I know it's fun, especially if you've got a cool engine. I mean, I'd sit there revving all day if I had a nice V8, but that would use a ton of fuel, especially because you're not going anywhere whilst you're doing it. Overall, about driving, what I would say is use the minimum revs necessary to get to where you need to go. Drive as smoothly as possible. If you have a manual car, shift up earlier than you might normally do and avoid excessive acceleration. And this is how you would be a better driver actually, because you look further ahead to see what's coming up. You try and time your acceleration and your braking to avoid using unnecessary extra energy. So not only does it make you smoother, but it will also make you safer. Number three, ditch the weight. Okay, I don't mean your relatives and friends. Unless you want to, I mean, they could be 80, 90, 100 kilograms extra. But what I am referring to is all that extra paraphernalia and stuff that you've got lying around in the boot that you've just left there, forgotten about, or you're using it as extra storage. You need to take that stuff out because anything extra in the car is adding weight, which means extra energy is required to move it all. Similarly, get rid of the roof rack, not just because of the weight, but also because the roof rack itself increases aerodynamic drag, which again requires more energy to keep that car moving, hence using more fuel. And talking of drag, close the windows, because the windows, when they're open, are also creating more drag around the car, slowing it down, and you're using more energy to keep it moving. Number four, check your tires. Make sure that the pressures are correct, because low pressure makes the engine work harder to move that car, because low pressure means the tire has a greater contact patch with the road. Pump them up and it has a less of a contact pressure, so actually there's less rolling friction and the whole car moves easier. While you're down there checking the tires, make sure you set them to the optimum requirement as per recommended by your car manufacturer. Normally it says in the boot or door jamb or something. But also check the tire itself for any scrapes or cuts or bruises or anything like that, because all of that could also affect the efficiency of that tire. Anyway, overall, the takeaway from this is think about where you're going, think about the journey, is it necessary, think about how you can avoid traffic, use whatever apps you can to help you do that, look after your car, make sure it's serviced, make sure it's running efficiently, make sure the tires are okay, and then drive smoothly. Make sure you've got rid of any unnecessary weight in the car, and then drive smoothly. Keep the revs as low as possible, turn the engine off when you're not using it, and just time the gear changes, acceleration and brake, so that you're not using unnecessary extra power. Hope this all helps. If it does, let me know in the comments below. And hey, do you like this t-shirt? Do you like the hat? Do you know what? You can have these. If you go over to my Patreon account and take out a subscription there, potentially I'll send you these. So there you go. There's an extra tip for you there. Drive around in these and you'll save even more fuel. That's not strictly true, but I thought I'd get that in anyway. Anyway, I'll see you all in the next video.
A big shout out and thanks to Jay Williams over at Air Technic, who are top tier sponsors of Brown Car Guy. Check them out at Air Technic Co UK for exhausts, brakes, suspension and body kits. Plus our other major sponsor, Nayagen Solutions. Much appreciation also to tier 4 sponsors, Muhammad Ali Humaid, Tom Conway Gordon and Reza Adil. And of course all these other guys who supporting on Patreon. Brown Car Guy is eternally grateful. Hey, think about joining them over at patreon.com Brown Car Guy. If you can't, don't worry. Just make sure you're subscribing to the YouTube channel and website. Plus follow on social media by searching for Brown Car Guy.